What's going on, guys? Had to be back. So, Pokemon Generation 5 Black and White was having a fair bit of coverage leading up to its eventual Japanese release. I've been keeping up to date on it through sites like Cerebi, which I'm sure plenty of Pokemon fans have used at one point or another. So, I've been seeing all the different things that people were discussing, all the features and the whatnots that I'll get into a little bit later. It all had me pretty excited for the game, so much so that I even downloaded a DS emulator and a ROM of the game I found online. Unfortunately, the laptop I had at the time wouldn't run a Game Boy Advance emulator very well, let alone a DS one, and the game itself wasn't translated, obviously, so I gave up shortly after Castelia City, and I decided to wait till the game was officially released. Eventually I got my hands on it, and with that, let's take a look at Generation 5 Pokemon Black and White. So, Pokemon Black and White stars you playing as either Hilbert or Hilda in the quiet Unova town with your friends' families, Sharon and Bianca, as well as the professor, Professor Juniper. One day, Juniper drops off a box to your house with 3 Pokeballs inside, one for each kid. Those Pokemon being Snivy, Tepig, and Oshawott. After testing out your new Pokemon, the 3 go to Juniper's lab to thank him for the gift. There, she entrusts you with a Pokedex and says to go out in the world and explore like kids should be doing. After some slightly uncomfortable family issues that need to be taken care of, the 3 take their first steps on their new journey together. Upon reaching the next town over, Accumula Town, the party witnesses an announcement by a group of people calling themselves Team Plasma, that now is the time to release everyone's Pokemon, and that if they don't, they will be forced to do so. Shortly after, a mysterious boy by the name of N approaches you, seemingly able to speak to Pokemon. He challenges you to a battle to hear your Pokemon's true thoughts, and leaves shortly thereafter. Now, your journey gets to truly begin. Catch every Pokemon you see, challenge gym leaders in the ultimate test of skill, all the while racing against N, who is trying to beat you to being champion for some reason. Go up against Team Plasma in not only a battle of force, but a battle of ethics, and be the best like no one ever was. Ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube internet space thing, let me introduce you to Pokemon's greatest antagonist in the entire series in N and Ghetsis. I wouldn't say that Pokemon has a plotline to rival that of some of gaming or cinema's greatest pieces, but this game surprisingly hits on a lot of deep subject matter led by these two mostly, as well as some other characters. The game touches upon if battling with Pokemon is unethical and immoral, which is quite coincidental when you think about it, since PETA was all over this game, unlike any of the other games. And while there's an easier answer to that is somewhat predictable by the end of the game involving Ghetsis, N as an antagonist is actually quite entertaining. Spoilers. N is actually the prophesized leader of Team Plasma, with a unique ability to hear what Pokemon are saying, and while it's not hard to predict, he comes out about his involvements by taking you up on the Ferris wheel of Nimbasa City. He then goes on to say that he's going to complete the Pokemon Challenge, and by being the champion, he will force everyone to release their Pokemon alongside the legendary Pokemon. This changes how badly you want to actually finish the Pokemon Challenge yourself. Sharon acts as your rival in this game, but N's involvement actually raises the stakes. And since he is a looming presence over your whole journey, it makes Team Plasma one of the few teams that sticks in your memories the longest, especially mine. His involvement with the legendary Pokemon is neat as well, since it's been rumored to only appear to 2 people at the same time. N is able to summon the dragon of your game's title color, but yet, despite him thinking that you are the other half of the prophecy, you are seemingly unable to summon yours. But as I said, I wouldn't necessarily name N your main rival in this game. That honor would go to Sharon, and if I'm going to go by that logic, Sharon isn't that good of a rival. I'd say he's a little better than Gen 3, but that's only because as long as you can function as a human being, you'd be better than them. Sharon wants to be the greatest trainer and wants to strengthen his team on you, much like what Silver was like. The biggest difference being that Silver was a bit of a prick, but grew as a human being and trainer all throughout the game, whereas Sharon maintains a status quo. And that's fine, I guess, it's just very cookie cutter. Rather, it's your other friend that attains more development in Bianca. The family troubles I mentioned stem from her father not wanting her to leave the house and town. She defies his orders and leaves anyways, with him seemingly in pursuit, as he eventually catches up with the party in Nimbasa City after you beat Alyssa. After he confronts Bianca, Alyssa shows up to prove to him that her being out is great for her growth and development. He finally sees for himself and decides to let her continue onward. And that's another thing. Besides the first gym leaders only being present outside their gym for a brief moment, you meet up and interact with every gym leader outside of their gym and have decent and meaningful conversations with them, some even being to be directly involved with the main plot. It adds even more depth to the characteristics of the humans in the Pokemon world. But obviously, this game is called Pokemon for a reason, and this generation had the unique style of having its entire Pokedex be brand new Pokemon and none from the previous generation or updated from them. I've seen early on and even now, people don't really like the Unova Pokemon and how this generation handled its Pokedex. I really didn't mind, at least the initial Pokedex setup anyways. I'd have preferred that they also did some sort of update to older Pokemon, because I always like to see what new things they can do to them or how to update them. But in terms of the new ones, I've got nothing against them. I even like some of them. In terms of the Unova landscape, it's nice that we finally start to get inspiration for the land from other real-world places other than Japan. Not that I've had much of an issue with that, but since Pokemon's become the worldwide phenomenon as it has, it's nice to see them trying to include more places from around our world as inspiration. This generation's example being the New York region of the States. They obviously take some liberties, but a change in aesthetics is nice, like how you can visit sporting events like football, baseball, basketball, and tennis. And there are some places that change depending on your game. Opelousas City can have a futuristic look or a natural one to it depending on your version of the game. I thought those were really fun places to visit. That being said though, Generation 5 suffers a bit in the structure of the area, as it's now a linear adventure compared to previous ones. Yeah, older generations were sort of linear in structure as well, but now you literally go from point A all the way to point J without much deviation besides some minor backtracking. At least the places you explore are nice and varied as well, with particular highlight on the bridges. There are quite a few bridges which don't just act as a means to get to one place to another, but rather are actual locations in of themselves. And traversing them is pretty cool as well, since the game plays around with the camera angles, making for some really neat little set pieces not seen often before this one. But anyways, you race against N, defeating all the gym leaders along your way, and make your way to the Elite Four, and what's cool is that this is the first generation to introduce the ability to do the Elite Four in whatever order you want. It's not really much, but giving you the choice is always a nice thing to have. Back on track. You beat the Elite Four, and then you start your descent to the champion Alder, whom you've met a few times on your journey. Upon reaching him, however, it's discovered that N has already beat you to him and has become the new champion. Well, that's alright, I say in my head. All I need to do is beat him like I did Blue back in Generation 1, and it'll be all good. Wait, what? I think I just wet myself. This moment right here has got to be hands down one of the greatest moments to present itself in a Pokemon game. The Pokemon League corrupted by N's castle with him ascending to the top to declare himself the champion. It's all such a grand spectacle and I loved it. He tells you to meet him at the top and leaves. Inside N's castle, you can explore the many rooms that N had grown up with, but also, more notably, you have a run-in with all the sages of Team Plasma. You run into a few every now and again on your journey, but now they're all here at once to beat up an 11-year-old. Just then, in another really cool moment, the Unovan gym leaders all swarm the room, protecting you and letting you move on to N. Upon reaching the throne room, you meet up with N, who gloats about being champion and having summoned the legendary Pokemon when you couldn't. Just then, the special orb that you've managed to acquire on your adventure morphs into your game's poster legendary. Astonished, N tells you to capture it, which, in a neat little sequence, you absolutely have to capture them. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you faint it revives itself and you can try again. If you run out of Pokeballs, you're able to teleport to the Pokemon Center just outside of the Pokemon League and purchase more. Granted, I think they make Reshiram and Zekrom's capture rate a little easier than most legendary encounters, so as long as you're fully prepared, you should be good. So you catch either one, and for the first time ever, the game asks you if you want to keep it in your party, allowing you to swap out a Pokemon you already have. A neat feature that won't be seen again until Generation 7, which sucks. For epic storytelling's sake, we'll say you chose to keep them, and then challenges you to a fight, and ooh boy, it's a grand old legendary versus legendary fight, and dang it. Anyways, the concept for the fight is pretty cool. So you defeat N. Completely shocked, he refuses his position, that is, until Ghetsis shows up and completely belittles N, stating that he is no more a tool than the Pokemon everyone uses around them. He then challenges you to a fight, attempting to assert his dominance over everyone. After a particularly tough fight, you defeat Ghetsis. In a funny sign of symmetry, he refuses to take the defeat and flees. Everyone rejoices, with N thanking you and your Pokemon for helping him to see the light. He hops on his legendary, bids you farewell, and then credits. Sorry that got a little long-winded and spoilery, but I needed you all to know just how spectacular the final sequence of Black and White's main story is. It was just one grand spectacle after another, and it just had me enthralled in its final moments, more so than any other Pokemon game's cookie-cutter endings, all accompanied by the awesome theme all throughout the castle and battles. So finally, you defeat Team Plasma and save the world. What's next? Well, there's a plotline involving returning character Looker searching for the sages that have scattered all over Unova. There's also the eastern part of the mainland that is now opened up for you to explore, including the other unique town based upon your game, Black City in White Forest. There's also the fact that since you technically never finished the Pokemon League, you can now go back and retry, although their levels jumped up quite a bit, so you're better off doing some other things first. Anyways, while Generation 5 was getting mixed reactions from fans and whatnot, everyone was waiting for the supposed inevitable announcement of the Generation 3 remake, since that has been the trend. Instead, we got the reveal of Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, a direct sequel that technically wasn't the first one in the series, since Generation 2 was a sort of sequel to Generation 1, but was a sequel in the same generation. Again, studying up on this game, some of the new things this game was bringing to the table was pretty neat, if at the very least was attempting to fix a lot of the nitpicks people had with the first games. So I would eventually get my own copy, and so now let's dive in as well to Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. So, Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 stars you as either Nate or Rosa, living in the not quiet city of Aspertia City, the only core Pokemon game where you start out in a city with a Pokemon gym. On this fateful day, you go up to the lookout point alongside your childhood friend Hugh to go and collect your very first Pokemon from the professor's assistant, that being the returning Bianca. You do so, and she also gives you a Pokedex to start your journey. As you proceed to the next town over, Alder introduces himself to you, shows you the ropes, and then leaves you to your own devices. And that's just it. You start your adventure from there. Catch every Pokemon you see, battle all new gym leaders and returning ones in the ultimate test of skill, help Hugh with his revenge plot against a rogue group of former Team Plasma members, and be the best like no one ever was, again. So, yeah, like you could probably guess from my brief synopsis, the story takes a more traditional route that Pokemon is used to. That being said though, the game is a sequel to its core and can't help but have a fairly developed story and world, since it does have its own lore and world to build upon. Getting to see how everyone has developed over the last 3 years was a nice touch. Bianca being Juniper's age, Sharon now being the gym leader of Aspertia City, even N has had time to reflect and develop over that time, and encounters with him are pretty sweet. No meetup with the original protagonist though, and that makes me kinda saddish. Hugh as a rival isn't too bad either. He's driven by a revenge plot against Team Plasma since they stole his sister's Purloin, and he has some really neat scenes when the two of you encounter some former members, and he just gets infuriated with them, leading up to the eventual scene of him meeting up with the Purloin, now a Lipard, and not remembering who he is. It's actually quite a heartbreaking scene. Aside from that, the dude also has an awesome battle theme. Another new character added to this game is a mysterious scientist named Kolrez, who is seemingly working alongside Team Plasma. He is attempting to study the bonds connecting Pokemon and Trainer, and is trying to unlock the true power that Pokemon have. His goals and ambitions are quite admirable, but his stance on allegiances keeps him from being a true supporting character, mostly in anti-hero status, but I don't mind. Pokemon's mostly been, no pun intended, a black and white situation when it comes to characters, so it's nice to see someone on the line. The Unovan region has since expanded in this sequel, as now there's a side area to house your hometown and a few other early locations. You'll eventually make your way back to the main hexagonal part, though you'll now get to explore different sections at different times. The only limitation being is you can't explore any spot east of Castelia City until the postgame, and the original Victory Road has since caved in, so now there's a new Victory Road set up, which is actually one of my favorites in the entire series. Since the first version of the game, many of the older Pokemon from previous generations have come to make their home in Unova as well, so now the Pokédex is filled with many different kinds of Pokemon, in case you didn't like the newer ones. I think that alone helped alleviate some heartache hardcore fans had with the first version of the game. As well, both versions carried special encounter spaces that you can encounter in caves, tall grasses, and whatnot. These things were about 70% annoying depending on luck, since some Pokemon can only be encountered in these spaces, but more specifically with caves, you could also just as easily get pointless gem items, making searches for some Pokemon kind of annoying. Each of the games also contains the battle subways, which acts as the game's battle tower for the most part, if that's a feature you really wanted. However, Black 2, White 2 introduces Join Avenue. This small plot of land is owned by you and is home to many little shops and raffle ticket areas. You get passerbyers that you can either recommend them to shops to improve them, or recruit them to make newer shops. A lot of these shops have some really valuable items for decent prices, and since new customers show up at a constant basis, working to improve Join Avenue was always something I went back to do consistently, and I also quite enjoyed it too. Number 2 also houses the PWT, or Pokemon World Tournament, another sort of battle tower type place, but houses some unique opponents from throughout all the Pokemon games. This is probably where I would say Pokemon started doing what I like to refer to as a legacy feature. Sure, previous games had nods to older titles, but here is where Pokemon starts to throw in characters in non-crucial situations for the sake of revisiting them. It's all pandering at the end of the day, but is always a nice thing to have as long as the rest of the games are fine. So you thwart the returning Getsus attempting to splice the poster legendary with Kyurem in order to flash freeze the Unova region. You get all the badges and beat the Elite Four. What next? Well, this game doesn't get a traditional post-game story. All areas open up allowing you to explore them freely. There's also a butt ton of legendaries to go and catch. Same with the first version, but 2 has a lot of the previous generation legendaries to hunt down as well. And that's all well and good, not truly my cup of tea, but there is one new spot that you definitely should go check out. In your game's special town of either Black City or White Forest lies a special battle tower called Black Tower or White Tree Hollow. In these lie 10 floors of many rooms filled with trainers of increasing difficulty. Unlike regular battle towers, you can earn experience from this area, making it a great post-game training area. In order to ascend the towers, you need to find the boss trainer. Defeating the other people on the floor will give you clues as to whom that might be along the way. Once beaten, they'll unlock the elevator up, allowing you to progress. At the very top is a boy named Benga, Alder's grandson, to which you'll battle him. He's a tough fight for sure, but your reward for climbing the tower and beating him, I feel, is worth it for a lot of players. After beating him, returning to Alder in Floessi Town, Benga will be there to give you either a Gibble in Black 2 or a Dratini in White 2 that are both shiny. For non-shiny hunters, and even those that have a rough go at it, this is such a cool prize. Both of these games just have so much to do with all of it and has a nice amount of variety to it. But What about its gameplay? This video's gone on long enough just gushing about plot stuff. Well, let me gush some more. Did you play Generation 4? Or, heck, even Generation 3? Then you've played Generation 5's combat. Why fix what isn't broken, I say, in this situation, especially since we have some major curveballs to deal with in later generations. What's slightly different is that Pokemon always move in battle, though it's basically just the animations from the older games on repeat, so it's not anything too special. They do add 2 new battle formations in triple battles and rotation battles. Triple battles are just as it sounds, sending a team of 3 Pokemon against your opponent's team. It's unique enough from doubles and can have some enjoyment out of it, although it can get clunky sometimes since Pokemon on your far right slot can't hit Pokemon on the far left or your opponent's far right, meaning if you need a specific Pokemon there, even though it's already out, there's a lot of switching that you have to do in order to get it right. Rotation battles are 3v3 as well, but always have one Pokemon as the focus at all times. At any point before you attack, you can rotate in which Pokemon you want as the lead and attack with them instead. It's kind of a redundant battle form though, since that's basically all you do in the first place with regular battles when you swap out Pokemon, minus the ability to attack with them on the same turn. But anyways, yeah, that's Generation 5 for you. An interesting plot and character piece interwoven with the tried and true Pokemon combat the series has evolved with along its journey. That being said, it's kinda hard and even slightly unfair to judge this generation since it's had 2 games basically spliced together to generate one large world and plot, whereas every other generation had 1 game or its future remake to flesh out its world more. So I'll be judging them to an extent individually, although I'm only securing 1 true spot for them on the list, in which case Generation 5-1 would take the 2nd spot on my list, with the sequel probably taking the number 4 if it would get its own spot. These games were just such a treat and proved to me that yes, Pokemon can indeed have a meaningful and worthwhile story, even if they immediately forget about it the very next generation. But anywho, thank you all for watching. If you like what you saw, maybe check out my other Pokemon videos, or maybe my Fire Emblem ones if you're looking for something different. And next time we come to a Pokemon game, we'll take a look at Generation 6 Pokemon X and Y and their remakes Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Until then, I'll see you all later.